Would you like to discover a magnificent witness of Portugal's historical past near Lisbon? Join us on a delightful trip to MAFRA. We will explain how to get there and what you will be able to see in a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Hola, ¿qué tal? Hello and welcome to the channel with practical information to make your trip to the Iberian Peninsula perfect, with the help of our self-guided walking tours. Once again, here we are sharing our love for Portugal. We have traveled a lot in Lisbon and its surroundings, but we had never mentioned MAFRA in the channel. In the video you will discover where MAFRA is, how to get there, what the palace and gardens look like, how to get tickets, and how much time you should spend on the trip. MAFRA is a city of 85,000 inhabitants located about 40 kilometers north of Lisbon. The city is dominated by the gigantic mass of the royal building of MAFRA, which we will talk about in a moment. If you are traveling on your own, there are basically three different ways to get to MAFRA. You could arrive by car, either your own or rented. The approximate travel time is 40 minutes and there are some tolls on the road worth approximately 185 euros, which can be paid by card or cash. Arriving in MAFRA, there is a free parking lot near the palace. Coming from Lisbon, it is just before you reach the palace. You can arrive by VTDE, the name given to ride-sharing services in Portugal. Remembering that both Bolt and Uber operate in Lisbon. It is a more expensive option, but for 3 or 4 people it can work out quite well. The third alternative is the bus, the autocarro in Portuguese. Lisbon and MAFRA are connected by several intercity lines operated by the company Carris Metropolitana. They are yellow buses. The starting point of the lines is Campo Grande station, served by the yellow and green metro lines next to Sporting Lisbon's José Alvalade Stadium. As you exit the metro station, you will see a sign with the lines and their starting point. Just after the sign and coming out of the station, turn right until you reach some covered platforms where the buses depart. You will see people waiting for them. Each bus line departs from a specific point marked with a sign. The lines we are interested in have Ericeira as their final destination, passing through MAFRA. On the website of the company there are quite a few lines, which you can see now on the screen, but many operate with restrictions on schedules or days of the week. Look for one that goes to Ericeira and make sure it passes through MAFRA. You can pay for the ticket in cash. Cards are not accepted at the moment, at a price of €4.50. If you load zapping credits on your Navigante card, the trip will cost you €3.10. In the first comment below the video we will leave a link to the video where we explain how the Navigante card works. The duration of the trip is about 40 minutes and you will get off at the stop located just before reaching the National Palace. On the way back to Lisbon, the bus stop is right across the National Palace. Be careful with the train. Although you might find a station called MAFRA Gare, it is very far away from MAFRA. The train is not a viable option for this trip. The first thing you are going to do when you arrive in MAFRA is to contemplate the exterior of the National Palace and marvel at its extraordinary dimensions. It is 38,000 square meters with more than 1,000 rooms, and you will want to take lots of pictures. The monumental complex is made up of the National Palace of MAFRA, the Basilica, the convent, the Cerco Garden, which is located to the left of the palace, and a large green area known as the Tapada de MAFRA behind the palace. On the screen you will now see a very brief chronology of the project. which was the responsibility of the Portuguese king João V, John V. Upon the king's death, the convent, palace and basilica project was continued by his successors. The palace and basilica represent the need for political affirmation of the Portuguese monarchy in close relationship with the Holy See, as a form of recognition of the absolute power of King John V, which came from his natural and divine right. For this reason, the new royal building fulfills the double function of state residence and religious house. During the visit, you will learn about the different parts that make up the royal building of MAFRA. On your tour inside the monument, you will follow a circuit that will take you through the different spaces open to visitors. There is a small tourist office to the right of the monument's facade, but access to the monument is through the central staircase in front of the basilica. Restoration work is currently being carried out on the basilica, so it is not possible to visit it. For this reason, we will not be able to show you as many images of the interior of the temple as we would have liked, because it is a magnificent work of art that you should not miss if it is open to the public again. But the rest of the open spaces are very interesting. Be prepared to walk around because there are many places to explore. The project of the gigantic monument was financed with gold from Brazil, which at that time came in abundance. To give you an idea of the scale of the project, at its peak it employed 52,000 people. The techniques learned and experience gained during the construction of the palace would later be put to good use in the reconstruction of Lisbon after the 1755 earthquake. The inspiration for many of the ideas that can be seen in the project came from the great Italian Baroque buildings. When John's court left for Brazil in 1807, the palace was no longer used as a permanent residence. A bit over 100 years later, in 1910, the last Portuguese king, Manuel II, left for exile from here. The palace was opened to the public in 1911, being the first national palace in Portugal to be open to the public as a museum. The visit to the palace ends with what we consider to be the jewel in the crown of MAFRA, the magnificent library, a true center of knowledge consisting of more than 30,000 volumes. King John V never saw the library completed, but much of the collection was assembled during his reign. In addition to classical works, sacred texts and secular works on sciences, arts, history, geography or law, the library has rare books and a collection of banned books kept in MAFRA under authorization from the Pope. A curious thing happened to us in the library. When we entered the room, we were absolutely dazzled. Granted, both Cecilia, my partner, and I are book professionals, and part of our professional training makes it very easy to fall in love with the libraries we visit. Nothing extraordinary here, but what was mind-blowing was to see how the vast majority of visitors to the palace arrived at the library, took their selfies, we assume that for their social networks, and went on their way without having spent a single minute of their lives contemplating the library. I don't know if we felt more pity than amazement, but we imagine it's a sign of the times we live in, where the selfie is more important than the experience. An afterthought. Good thing we don't all have the same interests, or the library would be overcrowded. Once we had visited the main building, we took a stroll through the very pleasant Jardín del Cerco, the Cerco garden, which is to the left of the palace and is also part of the complex recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is a beautiful baroque garden, very well kept, with many trees and plants, water mirrors, and an old water wheel. The garden serves as a transition between the monumental National Palace and the immense Royal Tapada. We visited MAFRA in the morning. We could have stayed for lunch at one of the many restaurants in town, but we decided to return to Lisbon, where we had other commitments. But not before stopping by the Fradinho confectionery shop to sample some of the local delicacies. The visit to the garden of the Cerco that we have just seen is free of charge, but to visit the interior of the palace you have to pay. The entrance fee today is 15 euros, and there are some discounts that you can check on the official website of the palace, which we will put in the first comment below the video. Portuguese citizens enter for free. You could perfectly buy your tickets at the palace ticket offices on site on the day of your visit. The Lisbon card is accepted at the palace, a card that, as you may know, we love here on the channel. You cannot use it to pay for the bus that takes you to MAFRA, but you will save the 15 euro entrance fee. The palace is open every day of the week except Tuesday, and you can check the updated opening hours on the official website. MAFRA is a very easy excursion to complete in half a day. A visit to the palace will delight anyone interested in history and nature. If you arrive at MAFRA at the opening time of the palace, 9:30 a.m., you can spend between 2 and 3 hours there. Depending on the time, you could even return to Lisbon for lunch or continue on to Ericeira, a destination that may be subject of a future video on the channel. If you are planning to visit Lisbon, I'm sure you have a lot of questions in your head. On the screen you can now see the list of videos we have published on the channel dedicated to the capital of Portugal. We deal with everything from accommodation to food, transportation. We're waiting for you right now on those videos.